If you need this money, go get it. That's fine.
All right, welcome everybody. It's 9:03 a.m. Call this meeting to order. Ready.
Director Bradley. Director Brems.
Here.
Director Cardenas.
Here.
Director Daly.
Here.
Director Keegley. Director Litvack.
Here.
Director Olson. Director Peterson.
Here.
Director Prokopas.
Here.
Director Silvestrini. Director Stevenson.
Here. Thank you. All right, moving to public comments. Do we have any public comments today? So none in the room, do we have any online public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 3, UPD update with the furniture.
Morning, everybody. I'm inviting Mark Olson up here so he can talk about the, he's our HR director right now, and I just wanted to update you on the situation with UPD, the hiring, the vacancies, what challenges we're seeing, just so you're up to date, and we'll do it at every meeting so you have that information. So.
Morning. I know Lieutenant Lord presented to you in the last meeting and kind of gave you an update for the year. So just to bring you up to speed to where we are today, we are currently down 7 officers for openings on the sworn side of the house. In September, we had 4 applicants total. 2 of those are, 4 entry-level applicants. 2 of those failed the PT test, and 2 of them ended up withdrawing. So we ended up with 0 for September on the entry level side. On the lateral side, we did have 1 applicant, and that individual is currently in the background process. For October, we've had 6 applicants on the entry level side. We'll be doing a PT test for them on Monday. So we'll see how that goes. 2 of those 6 are the 2 that failed the PT last month. So we just moving them forward this month, giving them another opportunity. And that's pretty much where we're at. Our applicant pool has dwindled dramatically, particularly since the announcement of the sheriff's office split from UPD. That's really affected our applicants. We need to get a fair number of applicants from the jail and from Public Safety Bureau, and those have dried up completely. You haven't seen any of those. So, you guys have any questions about hiring or where we're at?
I have a question. We're just essentially doing open recruitment year round now. So
Yeah.
there's not a.
Yeah, so in January, we changed our recruitment model to a monthly recruitment instead of like every 2 or 3 months. And that's actually worked out pretty well as far as the process goes. But again, in March, when all this upheaval kicked off, our pool just kind of down. But we're working really hard, and we're doing everything we can do to recruit and to move people through that process quickly and keep them engaged. That was the reason we went to a monthly model, was to keep the applicant engaged in the process without them having to sit for months and wait for an event. And that seems to have worked well. So,
can you remind me what the lag is between bringing somebody online and then actually having them be an active member of the force? And we have a metric that shows our attrition rate, our monthly or quarterly attrition rate. What I'm trying to get at is we're obviously having a hard time bringing people on board, and we're going to continue to have a natural attrition rate, notwithstanding the transition of the sheriff to her responsibility to the county, and the people are going to move there. So I'm concerned about whether we're going to be able to predict, are we going to experience a huge loss of officers in that 9 or 10 or year, whatever that is. Am I making sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So to the first part of your question, for an entry level applicant from time of application to out working on their own is more or less a year. For at least 10 months. For a lateral applicant, that can vary a little bit depending on their level of experience. Sometimes they need a full 12 weeks of field training. Most of the time we can abbreviate that down. So from time of application to fully functional for a lateral is about 4 to 5 months. So it takes a really long time. We always try and have people in that pipeline. We try and get entry level applicants into academies regularly in smaller groups so that we always have people in the process. We have there's 4 applicants or 4 candidates that just started the academy in September. And then we have another group that will be starting in November. And it's looking like that's just going to be 2 applicants or 2 candidates that will make it that far. So the other challenge we've been experiencing with hiring is the applicant quality. We've been failing a fair number of people in the background process. We did background interviews yesterday. We had those 4 applicants. 2 of them failed. So we were left with 2 that we're looking at to put into that November academy. So, back to your first part of that question, it is a process and it takes a very long time. As far as the attrition part of the question, I have not seen an uptick in our attrition, just compared to historical norms, even with what's going on. We generally lose about 4 people a month on average. 3 to 4 people a month, and that has not changed. I know there's a lot of rumor and speculation that people are jumping ship to go to other agencies because of what's going on. I have not seen that. I just did 2 exit interviews on Monday with a couple of people that have resigned, 1 civilian, 1 sworn, and neither one of them are leaving for that reason. One was moving for family reasons, life opportunities. She's moving to another state. And civilian moved for pay, actually. That was the issue. So, yeah, as far as attrition, I haven't seen a huge problem there. I don't have a statistical report for you right now. I can put that for sure, but kind of my anecdotal.
Yeah, I would like to see that because it concerns me that if we're bringing in 2 people or 4 people, and it takes a year to bring them online, and we're losing 2 to 3 per month just through natural attrition. It's not that good math, but
Yeah, we do have people in the pipeline. So we have a group of people that are currently in field training. We have several of those are almost done. Should be done. Actually, one of them just got assigned yesterday, so they'll be out working on the 22nd, or I'm sorry, the 8th of this month, so next Monday. And then we have a group in what we call pre-service, which is kind of the stage before they actually go to field training, where it's more classroom related. They're up at the firearms range, that kind of stuff. We have a group of 6 there. A couple of those are laterals from Murray. So they'll be out working a little bit quicker. So we do have people in the process. Those 7 vacancies that were down are true vacancies. So they're not, we don't have a person in field training to backfill that yet. So the hiring that we're doing now will fill those vacancies in November.
7's not, that's not an average. We've always had, it seems to me like we've always had that or more. So I'm not as worried about that as I am about how many people we're bringing on board and how many we can anticipate losing, and just creating a much larger gap just because we're not replacing the people that are leaving fast enough.
And this is a nationwide problem as well. I mean, it's not unique to UPD. Salt Lake City's down 50+ people right now. And they're having a very hard time recruiting as well. So, you know, certainly there's all of the normal things that people look at when they're looking for a job, pay, opportunity, culture. And those are really our strengths at UPD. You know, the big draw for us is our culture, really. You know, we're competitive in pay. We're not top of the market, but people will come to a department, at least in my opinion, more for the culture than anything else. And, you know, maybe I'm biased, but UPD has the best culture in this valley for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, that sounds like it was all sworn side. How about the civilian?
Civilian side, I'm not sure where we are as far as actual openings. We did have the one gentleman that worked in our records department that resigned to go to Salt Lake City PD. He worked in our grandma area and he got an opportunity to be a grandma supervisor at Salt Lake City. So it was a significant pay increase for him. And that's why he left. So I know we're down that position. Other than that, I'm not aware of anything.
So we're down 7 sworn right now. I know as Dally just said, it seems normal. Do you know on average, generally, how many sworn openings we have?
We probably vary between 4 and 10. Just depends on a hiring cycle. You know, if we hire a group of 6, then we'll be down in 3 or 4. And then that will tick up until we get to the next hire and then we go down again. You know, at least in the last 2 or 3 years, we have not been down more than 10 people ever, which in this market or in the current environment for hiring law enforcement officers, that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, our biggest concern is the applicant pool. But it's a concern for law enforcement across the nation. You know, the sheriff's all met with the governor, and that was the biggest topic. There just are not enough people applying. With UPD, we used to have 100 apply. I mean, we had such a large selection of who to choose from, and those folks just are not applying to law enforcement at all. So it's a big nationwide problem since 2020, and that we just wanted to make sure that you guys are aware. And I hope this is helpful. We can have Chief Olson present every 2 weeks or, you know, at every meeting to kind of help you, because I'm concerned that the rumors are out there that we're losing people because of the split. We haven't lost masses yet, but the concern is the people are not involved. And his team is just doing everything he can for recruitment. But again, across the board, it's not just UPD, it's every agency. So, but if that's helpful for you, we can continue doing that.
Is helpful.
Okay.
I guess all I would ask on that is a lot of meetings happen for me in between this meeting and then 2 weeks from now. Will you, I mean, it would be helpful to me, I think, saying, hey, like on 3 weeks ago, we had 7 openings and now we have, and just a refresher on kind of where we were at now.
Yeah. And we can have them provide that attrition data as well for you as next board meeting. That's helpful. Any other questions for him? Okay. I'll continue with my update. I just wanted to update you on a case that we assisted with Wasatch County. The sheriff out there had called on a Saturday and asked if we would assist in looking for a missing baby believed to be deceased. They had been working the case for several weeks, and you know, I called Chief Omey and asked his team to assist. So MIU and VCU started working the case on Saturday. By Monday, they were able to locate the baby was deceased in our area. Wasatch County's handling the case, but just the incredible work our folks do. It's just amazing. And they jumped right in, and really, you know, at those kind of cases, we don't care borders. We just care about the people involved in solving the crime and hoping we can save lives in this one, kudos to them. It's a very tough case anytime you have a baby involved. But the mother is in jail right now and they have violent charges on her. So you'll probably see that in the media in the near future if you haven't already. But UPD played a really large part in that. And Sheriff Rigby did send his thanks to us. It's something I wanted the board to know. Then the other, we had a SWAT call out over the weekend. Whenever we have a SWAT call out, our main goal is that everybody comes home safe. Our folks, the people that are involved, and it was handled well. We debrief every incident, so we'll know what worked, what didn't work, what we can change. But ultimately, the two individuals who created the problem were arrested, and all our people went home safe. The other thing is, all of you received a letter from Mayor Bush from Kearns. I don't want to talk too much about what was in that letter, but I do want to reassure you that Chief Olson and Harry have been working on this for some time. And I'll speak to you in the closed session regarding the contents of that letter and what we're doing with that. So, and then last, I chose an under sheriff and I picked somebody from UPD, which probably isn't surprising. Lieutenant Archuleta, Cynthia Archuleta, is currently assigned to internal affairs with UPD. But I have asked her to come on board to be the new under sheriff for Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office. That will take effect October 29th, I believe. Could be off on the date, could be the 30th, whatever that last end of that pay period is, or the beginning of the pay period. So just wanted to let you know that we will be notifying the county council as well and introducing her to the sheriff's side of the house. And then if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer.
You said she was from internal affairs.
Yes,
What was her position there?
the detective investigating internal affairs. Thanks.
All right, item 4, UPD realization update with your who's hiding in the back of the room today. Eric.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just give you a quick update. Again, a lot of progress has been made. Things are going relatively well. There was some challenges, but the first thing I want to show you is progress we've made on our org chart. Our org chart, I believe at this point after our last meeting with commanders, which I want to always acknowledge the people in this room that have helped with this project, have contributed left and right, formally, informally. A lot of people really stepped up to help with ideas and philosophically discussing things and figuring out the best way to go forward. So this is our most recent draft. I will be sending this to all the board members after the meeting, myself and Harley. There have been some changes again, so you understand that the yellow is the shared services, the blue is the cities, the green is Slovisa, and then everything in orange underneath each precinct is what we refer to as add-ons. And that's where each precinct or division can do customization of what they're doing. And then down below, we're working on numbers to see what our numbers with the reorganization look like. A couple of changes that were made. We removed two positions like the assistant chief position. We kept the watch command intact. We've matched up the basic precinct builds for cities and Slovisa, and we're getting very close. So I'm comfortable, although again, disclaimer to the draft, it's going to change. And I'll be meeting with commanders on the 11th to not only go over this, but there's a couple other hypothetical proposals that I'll be sharing with them. And depending on how that meeting goes, I'll share those with you. One thing I do want to make really clear, and I think it's important right now, is how we're doing this, the methodology that we're using to build this chart is simply a hypothetical of what could be. It's not intended to imply that this is the end, this is what it looks like, that, you know, decisions have been made and we're done. It's not intended to be that at all. What the intent here is to create possibility of what could be. It's very welcoming, understanding and acknowledging that people are still in decision-making evaluation processes. And that there are still decisions that haven't been decided, which is fine. Our philosophy, my thinking is, let's build out something that could potentially be, and then if we have to make modifications to it down the road, as things may change or may not, who knows. But as they change, it'd be easier for us to undo things than try to rebuild it, because every time you put something in it, it kind of has a secondary effect on everything else. So that's why we're doing that. So I just don't want there to be any misunderstanding that I recognize there's still people in the process of making decisions, and the intent of this is to be a hypothetical chart that shows a version of what could be. So I just hope that's a little clear, so there's no misunderstanding. In addition to that, if you want to pull up the next zip from me, as soon as we finish this one up, I'm doing some projections. This next one. Appreciate, you know, our HR chief and lieutenant and fiscal for helping with this. You asked for what it looks like, where are we at now? So that top line, for instance, you look at Holiday, that's where they're at staffing wise now. And then the line below it is what we're projecting. And again, this is a draft, subject to change, but we're projecting for reorganization numbers. I think this is going to get adjusted on the 11th. But again, we're getting really close. If you go down to the bottom, which, you know, up there, you have all your precincts. And as you move down, you have your divisions, your shared services. And then we went down, keep going down.
Police board meeting, but I'm muted.
Later, go ahead.
Anyone have a question? As you go down here, now you can kind of look at more of a summary of the precincts. And if you go down even a little further, you can look at our total sworn. The number we've come up, and we've tried to tie this out every which way with the different charts. So here's Salt Lake County with southeast and southwest, the countywide FTEs, in which you get there. If you go up again, Harmony, the UPD. So what we're looking at is about 348. Down, just that summary. That number 348 is the one we keep landing on. See, that's 270 plus sworn, civilian, part-time for 348. So we'll keep working that. We want to make sure these numbers are as accurate as possible. And so far, that's the number we keep coming back. So we need to go back to the drawing board on the 11th. Some of these, a couple of these new models, share those with the commanders and go through that creative process that I've described to you before. Have them challenge that, and then I'll be presenting that to you and sending some of these documents out to you. On the same note, we've had some good meetings with some of your councils and workshops or meetings. We are planning on a couple of meetings tomorrow. We have White City and Holiday. We have deliberation later in the month. For any of you who would like to that haven't had a presentation yet and an update for your council, please, work with Harmony and invite us in that time and a place that's convenient for you. We'll go anywhere, and we'd love to set up some of those last meetings with anybody on the board, any of the cities, townships, Salt Lake County, anyone that wants information from this perspective. We'd be happy to share that. Any questions on that?
Can you just, can we go up to the shared services piece?
Sure.
Again. This one.
There were some increases in the shared services because that's where we try to consolidate. For instance, motors, try to do some consolidation there with our fraud and domestic violence. We centralize that. And do some consolidation. So we'll be having another discussion on that. I've made a couple of recommendations that I'll be sharing with commanders on the 11th. We'll adjust those numbers slightly, but again, when we're talking about adjusting or changing things, these changes are getting smaller and smaller, which tells me we're getting pretty close to where we're going to land. Any other questions on that?
Under, if I'm understanding this correctly, investigations, office coordinator, civilians, we go from 5 to 16.
That's because we're consolidating special operations investigations. So we're taking what were previously 2 divisions, pushing them together. So that's why you see some of those increases. We're trying to make some savings there, but everything we're trying to, again, as I've said in the past, create that balance between consolidating and still keeping good services, but we're very mindful of the cost and that 7% benchmark. And right now, some different calls. Again, I'm going to share these with you after we challenge them with commanders. But we have now 3 different hypotheticals that range between people's costs of 6 to 10%, all the way down to everybody's at 7%. They all have implications. So I have not had a chance to show this to you. We'll have them look at that, and we'll have our normal cage match and then bring that back to you.
And then just another quick clarifying down on, or if you just go down just a little bit to the where it showed those total numbers for staffing. Just a little bit more. There we go. So the 341, that's current work chart, not including the countywide precinct.
Right, with the current cities and towns shared.
I have a question. So the chart that you've shown us now, that's not ready to be sent out, right?
Correct.
And, an idea of when that might be
After the 11th,
after the trial. Okay.
I anticipate some change.
And so coming to our town council would be best to set up something after that.
Sure, yeah, we'd be happy to share that after. And normally what I like to do is, like, for instance, this is the first time I've shared that particular that version of the org chart. You've seen other versions, but they're outdated now. That one's dated September 28th. So once I've had a chance to share with the board and you've all seen it, I'd rather you see it first before I go out and talk to everybody else about it. So you're comfortable with what the information is. That's acceptable.
Chief, when you go out to the various councils, and I'm sorry I brought this up before, but it's important to me. Are you bringing up the fact that the costing associated with this organizational chart really reflects a loss of economies that's going to be the result of this transition, and that it is not anticipating going into a budgeting season? So I just want to make sure everybody's aware that, look, this is what the cost of the transition is going to be, and then as soon as this is over, you're going to be going into a budgeting season that's going to have to deal with current markets and COLAs. And so there's going to be another increase associated with that that's right on the heels of this transition, so that councils aren't surprised by any of that.
That hasn't come up at all meetings, but it's been mentioned various times as people examine it. Basically recognize that 7% is to try to minimize the reduction of service to the department. Not make that so low that it's, what's the point,
Yeah.
We're in effect, but yeah, that has come up. And as we go down the road here, that definitely becomes
I'd just like that to be right out front, so people are fully aware of that right out of the gate. We don't have somebody in April or May saying, well, wait a second. We just had a, whatever it is, 7% increase.
Yes.
And, you know, the timing of it's gonna be bang, bang, and or maybe it transitions at the same time, I don't know, but if it does transition at the same time, that the COLAs and markets are gonna have to be layered over the top of the transitioning cost. And so I just want that to be right out front for everybody, so we don't get some council that's shocked at the fact that, oh, it's not 7%, it's 12%.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I anticipate that discussion will begin in earnest in November, December, as we get out of. Correct me if I'm wrong, Debbie, but as we get out of the audit, we start moving into the budget piece, that's when we'll start having that discussion. So what that means, what needs to be done. The next item real quick, we've been out, I've got all these pamphlets. I want to thank our facilities team. We've been out with our brokers. We've visited quite a few properties around the area. We've learned a lot. Obviously, this is our strong suit with real estate, but as our team's gone out, we've seen what's out there. We've learned quite a bit about the market, what's available in terms of the expense. We even, or I received a couple days ago, even looking at purchasing a building for the UPD, but that's very, very expensive. So I don't know if that's the route to go. I don't think we'll explore that too much deeper, but I'll be sending out a comparative spreadsheet to our facilities team here in the next day or two with all the properties we've looked at. And then we're going to be meeting again to discuss options. And keep in mind, we're not just looking at, commercial properties. That's one option of many. We have about 5 different contingencies right now that we've looked at, including, locating here temporarily, if that's a possibility, looking at different existing locations or vacating here at some point and locating ourselves in existing precincts. So again, that's very much in progress. It's not. It's an important project, but I think the reason that we started working on that now, the reason we started working on that now is because that could take some time, especially the way things are today. So in terms of construction costs and other things, depending on whatever option we do, that may take a little bit of time and it takes finances. So we need to do it at some point, but it makes sense to start now and be prepared for future. So that is still in progress. One other thing is we had a really good meeting yesterday. Chief Dial, a bunch of the commanders, Chief Ackerman coming together and discussing kind of getting a baseline with our assets, our capitalized, non-capitalized, and how we're going to transfer those, make those adjustments, and do that in a really fair, equitable way for everybody involved. Make sure we follow the formula, and so we'll be working with that group to make sure that that's done efficiently, and then obviously with Perry and Ralph and Bridget will be involved in those discussions. So I think it was a good preliminary meeting. We identified a number of areas that we need to start figuring out now, so we'll get that going so that we're prepared as we start seeing this maybe the sheriff's office or state or make that efficient. So again, I mean, it's October, beginning of October. We're way ahead of where I thought we were going to be. We're projected on timeline, but I think we're doing well. We're just trying to stay in front of the people. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Chief.
You got it.
All right, item 5, we've got the Solid County Law Enforcement Bureau update. Director.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to update you a little bit. So as our previous plan that we presented, we're still in line with our timeline. We've met with county HR, they've completed the market study. Now we are meeting with them to go over the market study and figure out where we can fit in bringing back the law enforcement bureau that we had prior. So our biggest challenge as a county is different than UPD. We have different wages, processes, and benefits. So it's taken some time to compile all that information and figure out how we make that work. But we're meeting regularly on that. And then next week we meet with our finance committee to go over the org chart, what we believe it will cost the county. And that is the org chart that we'll go over with them is the statutory duties and countywide services, and then what the county will have to pay for the shared service piece, because we'll be no longer sharing those services with the UPD. We're going to do that next week. And then one of the things that we were looking at, we've talked to Chief Mazarin, Chief Dunn, and Harry about is, in order to minimize the impact, is maybe at the first of the year, start looking at transitioning some of those units over, not impacting any shared service. The county will continue to share services, but if we can slowly do those transitions, the huge impact would be July 1 for UPD. So we can slowly do those but continue to use shared services, so that wouldn't touch any of your budgets. Because we want to make sure that, that is something that we don't do, rather than July 1, we're just out in the shocker. So if we can do in a transition, it would be much easier. Let's see. And then that's pretty much it, unless you have any questions for me. We're just meeting regularly. Now, with our process, we have to go through the several committees that we formed. And then we also have to take it to the mayor's office, and then we have to take it to the county council, and then we can bring it here. So that's our process, and we're happy to share any information. Right now, we have not shared the org chart because it's continually changing. And as we figure out the shared service piece, I can tell you that we'll work on a contract model once all that is done, because it's been requested, and it'll be much easier to plug in those numbers for a contract model. But I can't give you a date that the contract model will be ready, but it is, I know to many of you, that's a priority as well. So we'll make it a priority. We just have to get through these, conversations with HR regarding pay and benefits, because that's the most important piece, is being able to bring people on and not bring them on whole if we can. Any questions that anybody has for me? I'm happy to answer. Thank you.
Sorry, I do have one. It just came to mind as you're sitting here, you talked about it earlier. Well, I guess two parts. So I know there's been a couple hires in the sheriff's office recently.
Yeah, those two back there.
And I think you've still got a civilian. Are there other positions you're getting ready to hire?
Not well, the undersheriff we're bringing on board this month. And then we did hire a office coordinator. And that's no impact to the UPD on that one. So.
And then so with the undersheriff opening, that was an existing position, was the same approach taken there as with these other two, where it was, from my understanding, emailed out to the listserv for both the sheriff's office and UPD?
No, that's an appointment by me, so I don't have to put an announcement out. I don't have to interview anything like that. That's a direct appointment from the sheriff. So that's how that one was handled. The other ones, we did do interviews and gave others an opportunity But the undersheriff is a direct appointment for me. Thank you.
All right, item 6, UPD reorganization discussion. I know that we've got a closed session scheduled on this meeting, where we'll have more discussion. Have anything else to add? I can do it on my mind or maybe too there. But anybody else from the board? Let's discuss this time. Okay. All right, upcoming meetings, we'll be scheduling October interlocal committee meeting. Terry, I believe that's how I read that. Did you want to do anything with that now, or just putting it out there?
I think the easiest thing to do is to just send out a sort of a poll as to some suggested dates and see who's available and who's not. And we'll include the same attorney mailing list that we used for the last meeting as well. Since none of them are here, well, Paul's here. Paul, I don't know if any of the attorneys on the train here, so it's probably easiest to try to coordinate that through poll rather than doing it here.
All right, Army and CB will get you out. We'll look forward to it. And we've got a UPD board meeting Thursday, October 19th at 9 a.m. I believe I'll be here for that. I'll be coming back from California that week for a funeral, and I think the plan is that we'll come back Wednesday. So, but just in case. And then we got our next UPD board work session meeting on Wednesday, November 1st at 9 a.m. It's not listed here. Okay, item 8, approval of the September 21st, 2023 UPD board meeting minutes.
So moved.
I have a question. I had a question. I was not in attendance at the last meeting. There's a statement in here that discussed just a little bit. Mayor Stevenson stated that his council has concerns that this is an unfair ask. In the past, there have been bigger budget increases. If something were to happen and there were a 10% increase in the budget, that would be a 40% property tax for this area. I think that we're going to be talking about a 7% increase in Operation Canyon coming up, and related to a significant property tax. We're already feeling overtaxed for what we're getting. This would be awesome. Could we talk about that? Sure. Where that information comes from?
For which piece, the 10% piece? So because Maz, when I say something and I'm wrong, you can correct me. Because Maz, as he's going through reorganizing, is looking at a 7% department-wide increase. But because Midvale has a greater burden of we use more shared services, we're seeing a greater impact on that. So ours is closer to a 10% increase right now. And for us, that's about $2 million, which if we're unable to, we don't see some huge sales tax increase and we have to put that on property taxes. For us, that's a 40% property tax increase.
Sure.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's where.
Yes, we understand.
Approved minutes.
Yeah, motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so it's passed, thank you. Item 9, merit system in the reorganized UPD. We're going to hear from Harry.
I was talking.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. I brought back memories from law school of getting called on and not being ready for a minute. So, one of the issues that has arisen obviously in the reorganization is the question of what will our
merit system look like. And I started doing a review of the existing statutory authority. We're currently under a statute called the Peace Officers Merit Commission for counties of the first class, and it's worked well for us. The problem is that in order to qualify for that, you need to be either a county or a county as a member of an interlocal entity. So the way I read the statute, we're going to need to move to a different merit system once the county is no longer a member. By the way, when the county is a member, there's no choice. We are a part of that. So we started looking at the question of how we're going to structure it, and we had some discussions previously in a committee setting about what that may look like and what are some issues that the board wanted to ensure that are included in that new merit system. And when I say merit system, it would be both for law enforcement officers and civilians, even though there may be different structures for the law enforcement aspect as well as the civilian. But so I guess one of the things that I was requesting is just, I think there was a desire on the part of the board chair and some other members to discuss that what they've envisioned a merit system looking like as we move forward and look at certain models, because we will have the ability to structure it just from a perspective of continuity. It seems to me that it's because we're moving to a different merit system, but we're the same agency doing it. It's mostly based upon our structure rather than anything else. So it seems to me that whatever structure we resolve or settle on is something that's going to look quite similar to what we already have. With that in mind, I would just indicate that right now, what we're looking at is something that would involve something that will continue to, and I'm looking at section 1113.225 of the Utah Code, which spells out, by the way, that an interlocal entity shall establish a system of personnel administration. It doesn't call it a merit system, but it specifically says that, and it will effectively provide for recruiting, selecting, advancing employees on the basis of ability, knowledge, skills, including open consideration of qualified applicants for initial appointment, equitable and adequate compensation, employee training, and retaining employees on the basis of employees' performance, as well as separation of employees whose inadequate performance cannot be corrected. In addition, it involves the fair and equal treatment of employees without regard to race, color, religion, sex, national origin, or disability, and formal procedure for processing the appeals and grievances of an employee without discrimination, coercion, restraint, or reprisal. So those are the statutory requirements. However, I do think that in addition to that, whatever we design, recommendation would be that there is no need for people to reapply. There is no need for people to lose any existing merit protections that they have in terms of rank or seniority, and in fact would probably protect those going forward. So that's sort of the basic outline of what we would be looking at. And I just wanted to answer any questions or take any comments you may have at this point.
Well, thank you, Harry. We asked Harry to come and talk about this today because we've heard some concerns about, will the reorganized UPD have a merit system? What will that look like? And this board has stated it before, and I'll say it again, our full intent is to have a merit system very similar to the one that exists now that recognizes rank and seniority, that has protections for rank, job status, due process for officer discipline. This is Harry just laid out. So with that separation, we won't, I'm going to say something wrong, correct me, we won't have a new merit system until the separation occurs. But that is the full intent, is that we do have one with the same functions or various.
Yes. I mean, at least obviously it's up to the members to decide, but what we're working on and what we will be working on is not a system that is an at-will system. It's going to be a system that will continue to provide for protections of, for, due process if there's an issue regarding discipline and we're looking at, a demotion or a termination that can be appealed. And I'll probably be using a model not too dissimilar to either what UFA has or what some cities have of comparable size. So it is going to be something that would, we'll be looking at appeal processes and have a commission of some sort that would be an appeal commission for issues that arise. And that would be for both civilians and law enforcement officers. So, I mean, at this point, I may be calling some of your city attorneys to review the status structure and hopefully have something to circulate in the next 30 to 60 days. This is, it's going to be somewhat of a big challenge, but we don't have to reinvent the wheel. I just wanted to make sure that as we move forward, that the board's intent is to have something as similar to our current structure as possible within the confines that the law places upon us for maybe having to leave the current system, but replacing it with something that looks a lot like.
The only other thing I'll add on that is because I know I keep hearing about things like vacation as well. And again, the intent here is that all of that stays, doesn't start over, because it's not a UPD 2.0, it's just UPD losing a member just like we have before in the organization continuing.
Correct.
So would it be appropriate to just refer this to governance and have them work with you? And I think it's kind of like the interlocal, right? That there's all these things we're working on that aren't going to take effect till the actual baton pass happens between when the sheriff separates, but we've got all these pieces in place that are ready to go at that same exact moment.
So I think one of the things that the UFA Interlocal did is that they actually incorporated the personnel system as an attachment to their interlocal when they adopted it, so that it was something that was in the interlocal in terms of its basic structure. Obviously, the rules governing conduct and procedure aren't in there. That's something that can be replaced later and changed by whatever the commission is that will hear these appeals, and the organization can do that. But one of the things to do would be to look at maybe doing that. So it could be, governance that handles that. It could also be just referred to the interlocal revision and make a decision. Right now, what it says is we will have a merit system, and it doesn't define that. But I think that maybe moving forward, we may want to put more votes on maybe some meat on that as we go forward with structuring the organization, add a structure for the merit system directly into the interlocal, and maybe not. But I think that my suggestion would be, why don't we let the drafting committee take first crack at that? And I'd like the involvement of the various attorneys for the entities, cities, townships, because I think that they're already used to designing merit systems within the structure of their organizations, and their input would be very helpful. So suggestion would be we refer this to the interlocal drafting committee first.
The most important thing to me is that we make a public statement that that our merit system is attached to the county. When that attachment is no longer, we're going to have our own merit system. It's going to look very similar to the one that we have right now, which is what you said and what Mayor Stevenson said. I just want to make sure that was out there publicly, and between now and that time, we'll work on it and make sure that's in place when that separation occurs. I don't care which committee.
No, I think that's fine. I wasn't asking for a specific vote of any kind. I think it's premature, but I think that receiving direction on how to structure it is helpful as we move forward with our drafting effort.
What's the schedule?
Pardon?
What's the schedule?
I've indicated that I would like to have an interlocal to submit to the members to review sometime around the first of the year. We've said March, but I'd like to have it by January if possible. So that gives us 2 months to complete most of the work. We've already had some successful meetings where attorneys have been present and talked about some of the structural changes and language changes. One of the things I'm getting is, I've been getting comments from various attorneys. I intend on incorporating those into a new draft. I'll be circulating to the members of the interlocal drafting committee, and any member of UPD is welcome to participate either directly or through counsel in these meetings. And then once hopefully this is ready in that time frame, and I think we can. I've been, like I said, ready to put together a new draft to send out for another meeting sometime in October. That hopefully we can stick to that schedule, even though I was initially hoping that we wouldn't need to switch merit systems. My review of the statute, I think, requires it. So that's something that unless the legislature changes that, and I don't know how they would change that, that for us, it looks like it's going to require us to make a switch whenever we, when the county is no longer.
Are there any glaring parts of the existing merit system that you intend to change?
You know, I think it's just from my perspective, I think it's been a pretty good system. We've had very good commissioners. They have been active participants in both the testing process and the discipline process, and they've been very beneficial to the organization. I'm going to be sad to lose them, actually. I can't think of anything, but I also think that one of the requests would go out to labor or to officer associations. If they have something that they don't like about the current system, that would be the time to bring it forward so we can incorporate it into a new system. And I haven't heard anything, but you know, make the request now if they want to have input on this structure of the system. It would probably be a pretty good time to give us that input.
Mads, I'm gonna be on the spot. I know that before you've put out surveys to folks, would that be something that we could do, trying to get feedback on the merit system?
Yeah, sure. We could just use the current one that it's just we use and just raise a question and put it out there.
Sorry.
No, not on that.
Any other questions, comments for Harry? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
On this one, that's it. So at this point, I think we would move on to the closed session.
Okay. Well, I would entertain to move into a closed session just for the discussion of the character development complicated with physical or mental health of a computer. So we second, any discussion on that? On the new call roll.
Director Valley,
Aye.
Director Brown, Director Cardenas,
Aye.
Director Valley,
Aye.
Director Keithley, Director Litvak,
Aye.
Director Olson, Director Peterson,
Aye.
Director Prokopis, Director Silverstein, Director Stevenson.
Yes.
Sorry.